did the political class believe would be the criteria for each candidate to be successful in the debate?
Don't interrupt Joe Biden.
Don't take the bait. Don't look like a bully.
Don't get angry.
Portray normalness.
Trump has to show that he's not going to end democracy.
Don't respond in a way that the suburban mothers wouldn't like.
Can't you just pretend to be normal for 90 minutes?
Just now, Jon Stewart ripped on President Trump's actions. What he said on Trump's purported patriotism is absolutely unbelievable. Warning, the Constitution will be destroyed. Let us now discuss Trump's purported patriotism. As a side, you'd get hamburgers and cove fief with that kind. Stewart is undoubtedly taking a close look at Trump's flag-waving habits, and her findings are not positive. Does being Trump's best friend with Uncle Sam make him happy? But Stewart refuses to take it. Just like his tan, Trump claims his patriotism is genuine.
Greatest economy in the history of our country. A lot of credit for the military and no wars and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. He allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants. We had the lowest taxes ever. I didn't have sex with a porn star.
Everything that Donald Trump said in that clip is a lie. Blatant and full.
This is all show and no substance, folks. A major source of frustration for Stewart is the Republican Party's "We're the real Americans" rhetoric. They think they're better than the average Joe, and he's making fun of that. Because isn't telling half of the population they don't belong the ultimate expression of "I love my country"? Even ignoring the GOP's fixation with the Constitution. Stewart is well versed in dealing with them. He takes issue with their performative patriotism when they dress like the Founding Fathers, put the Constitution on buses, and deliver speeches while standing in front of it. It would appear that the Constitution is little more than a patriotic political prop in their eyes. However, things begin to heat up at this point. Stewart is berating Trump for what he claims to be his commitment to constitutional law. According to the President's Counsel, the President's legal license to murder his American political rivals is true. Absolutely. I am. The tireless advocate that he is, Stewart looked up that particular provision in the Constitution.
Tonight, the president must show the country that he can keep our corn safe. What can you do in 2 minutes? I can't even articulate what's wrong with your entire setup to this debate. An ad break to watch a Hulu show.
And China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago because I didn't have legislation. I said close the border. We had the safest border in history. How close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states, everybody.
Warning, this contains spoilers. It is surprising, I know, and the story doesn't stop there. Stewart has made a long list of all the serious violations of Trump's constitutional rights. Perhaps the Bill of Rights? Trump does not have any supporters. He has called for the imprisonment of journalists who voiced their disagreement with him. Assembly without interference? As a solution, Trump suggests shooting demonstrators in the legs. A fair hearing. Who would want it? Shoplifters should be shot immediately, according to Trump. He seemed more intent on violating each and every amendment in constitutional bingo than covering squares. This isn't all. Trump has made it clear that he would want to rule like a tyrant for just one day. There's no need to worry. It's just for one day. Stewart makes a joke on how everything begins tiny. Suddenly, following the armed salute, a tyrannical government with all its power emerges. Even if Trump were to proclaim himself king, he would likely still have the support of his supporters.
I'm not a political expert. But while Biden was preparing at Camp David for a week.
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
Oh, shit, we're back, baby!
It's been a great thing.
Oh, he is It's a great thing! Hit him, Joey!
True patriotism is standing in opposition to democracy. Here, Stewart is being really forthright. He is clearly demonstrating that backing Trump and his self-serving agenda does not constitute patriotism. It is a monarchy. And as far as I can tell, we essentially went to war to escape the king thing. Because of the snow, you might believe that Republicans are the most patriotic, but that notion will be busted faster than a July popsicle by Jon Stewart. He is taking on the Republican Party's phony patriotism monopoly, which is as endearing as a bald eagle at a haircut, and because he is well versed in dealing with Republicans, Stewart has no fear of doing so. A failed job interview would describe his ridicule of their entire "we're the only true American" speech.
Hey, I know abortion's one of our strongest issues, but let me for a moment talk about immigrants killing and raping people. It's one of our weakest.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border.
So how do we do this now? Do I take his car back to the White House tonight? I mean, come on. We done with this shit? Do I just UPS his stuff? I mean, come on. That was crazy what he did just now.
Some people behave as though the United States of America is for them alone and everyone else is merely a transient guest. Hang tight, I'll make it better. Stewart has finished reading Alabama Senator Katie Britt's State of the Union speech, and holy cow, it's lengthy. Take this into consideration. Britt is all smiles as she proudly declares, "We are steeped in the blood of patriots who overthrew the most powerful empire in the world." It's as if she's won a beauty pageant. Imagining our brave heroes covered in blood doesn't exactly put a grin on my face. It seems like she's attempting to pitch us on a new range of freedom juice. However, Stewart holds the opposite opinion.
He doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all. Probably the worst administration in history. The worst presidency in the history of our country.
Does not appear to have passed the test. See me after debate. All right, Trumper, what do you got on substance?
I don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
He stresses that the Republican Party has transformed into a revolutionary LARPer and is behaving as though it has direct ties to George Washington. For some reason, they seem more patriotic since they proudly raise the flag higher than the average person. Nevertheless, this is where the real money is made. Just how often do you hear Republicans bragging about how much they cherish the Constitution? Their desire to marry it is palpable, but Stewart is claiming that the whole show is a joke. What exactly does the Republican Party do to make itself more American? This is his primary concern. Is it because the Constitution is something they constantly bring up? Is it true that they call themselves the party and ideology of the Constitution? On the other hand, could it be that they are saying the Pledge of Allegiance while doing a handstand? Even worse, by raising this flag, they are endorsing a candidate who views the Constitution more as a manual than a codification of laws.
What's RFK Jr. doing tonight? Maybe he's got something. Wait, what's that? I'm sorry. Oh, vaccines. Oh, No, I see. But yeah, sure, there's side effects to. There was, of course, a moment where I kind of thought we were getting substantive.
I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died.
Shit just got real.
First of all, that was a made-up quote.
A made-up quote, which I think in Trump land means, that's a real quote.
Even though Trump possesses a legal license to murder his American political rivals, the Republican Party is behaving as though his suggestion to the president is confined to casual Fridays. The illusionists' attempt to dismember Lady Liberty while simultaneously claiming to be her biggest admirer is akin to this. The Republican Party's patriotism is act rather than reality. It's like they're auditioning for America's Got Talent without any genuine abilities. But Stewart won't let them off the hook. The speed with which he exposes their lies makes you want to shout, "Life, liberty, and the pursuit of alternative facts." He's making a point about how their seeming commitment to American values is at odds with their support for Trump, a man who regards the Constitution as if it were toilet paper. That disproves Trump's claim that he is patriotic. Where does his adherence to the Constitution stand, though? It is not as legitimate as a $3 bill, so please be aware of that. Trump has launched a number of assaults on our constitutional right, and Jon Stewart is leading us on a wild journey through them, and it's terrifying.
The one thing that we did prove tonight is that the MAGA conspiracy theory about Biden's upcoming debate performance.
Debate Viagra.
Well, certainly there are drugs that can be used to energize a person in that state.
A little before debate time, he gets a shot.
They are giving the president some sort of a stimulant, an ADD drug, Adderall, Ritalin.
Press freedom comes first. Any man worth his salt would be game for it. Wouldn't you agree? Not true. Sending Trump to prison is Trump's way of dealing with those annoying journalists who don't back him. It sounds like you heard me right. Stewart is in possession of the invoices. He added, in fact, you take the writer or the publisher of the paper and you say who is the leaker. They say we're not going to tell you. That's okay, you're going to jail. This isn't all. Trump is not satisfied with the mere imprisonment of journalists. He has something special in mind for them. Their future is bleak, according to Trump's prediction, as they will be the bride of another prisoner very short time. How did Stewart react? Solid gold. He is merely stating, I believe it was Thomas Jefferson who once said our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, though obviously, as with any right, there is some wiggle room for non-consensual ass. Let us shift gears and discuss the right to gather, that stupid right that allows demonstrators to congregate and hold demonstrations. To solve this problem, Trump suggests an easy solution. Just shoot them in the legs or something. Stewart will be quite offended by that. The U.S. military shoot protesters in the streets of our nation's capital. He uses Trump to highlight the ridiculousness. Nevertheless, according to Stewart, they'd still be free to assemble, just the assembly would be more of a pile. Is due process also being considered? Who would want it? A new structure will be instituted by Trump. According to him, if you rob a store, you can fully expect to be shot as you are leaving that store. How does Stewart feel about this? I'm pretty sure that shooting a guy on suspicion of stealing a pair of khakis violates not only the Constitution, but the 10 Commandments and the Gap Employee Handbook. However, Trump isn't merely tinkering with our liberties. Character of a despot is emerging in him. Trump once said, "I want to be a dictator for one day." Stewart brings this up in his analysis. Eventually, everyone. That will suffice for him. Except Stewart isn't on board with it. He explains that that is how it starts, ignoring the Bill of Rights, tearing up the Constitution, pining for a brief stint as a dictator. However, what's really peculiar is it has been devoured by Trump's supporters. Stewart can back it up with quotes. "This country needs a dictator," a backer said. "I'd rather have Donald Trump as a dictator for 4 years, absolutely. I would stand by his side if he were to murder someone on the White House steps." Here, Stewart is being really forthright. These so-called nationalists are being called out for their hypocrisy by him. He points out that you want him to be the leader uber alles, you want him to have the right of kings, you do you, but stop framing it as patriotism. The one thing you cannot say is that Donald Trump is following the tradition of the founders. Those of you who expected Stewart to make lighthearted jokes about Trump were mistaken. Trump has more bankruptcies than this guy. Stewart has elevated hypocrisy from a mere criticism to an artistic endeavor. Also, I'll tell you, the canvas he's using, it is a work of absurdist art. Stewart has a lot of talent. He has transformed Trump's absurd remarks into hilarious material. Do you recall when Trump's lawyer said he had a legal license to murder his American political rivals? Stewart had a brilliant reply in mind. In reality, he kept his heart close to his Constitution, he said as he made a fake page turn. Killing your political opponents doesn't appear to be anywhere in this. No one ever thought the Constitution would be such a suitable punchline, did they? Hang tight, I'll make it better. Stewart is highlighting the absurd inconsistencies in Trump's entire strategy while also mocking him. Trump has criticized the First Amendment, so consider this. President Trump attacking the First Amendment and freedom of the press, you say that's okay, you're going to jail? Stewart continues, emphasizing the absurdity more. It's as if Trump is attempting to violate every amendment in the Constitution instead of covering squares as in the game of constitutional bingo. No need to even discuss Trump's interpretation of due process. If you rob a store, you can fully expect to be shot as you are leaving that store, the chief executive stated. How does Stewart feel about this? I'm pretty sure that shooting a guy on suspicion of stealing a pair of khakis violates not only the Constitution, but the 10 Commandments and the Gap Employee Handbook. The former president turned out to be less of a nuisance than the Gap. Who would have thought? However, Stewart truly excels in this regard. In contrast to Trump, who is satisfied to utter platitudes, he is utilizing comedy to draw attention to the hazardous absurdity of Trump's comments. As Stewart points out, Trump has said that he just wants to be a dictator for one day. He expresses concern. That's how it starts. Let's just start with a few people doing the armed salute, and we'll see if the armed salute catches on. Although it has a humorous side, there is also a serious side. Stewart likewise does not absolve Trump's backers. He makes fun of his imaginary supporters' naive allegiance by quoting one of them, "I'd rather have Donald Trump as a tyrant for 4 years. I would stand by his side if he were to murder someone on the White House steps." The absurdity of that is nearly funny, nearly there. Aside than making us laugh, Stewart evokes feelings. He is challenging the Republican Party's assertions that they are the party of hardworking parents and families by drawing a comparison to their "we are steeped in the blood of patriots" rhetoric. Attempting to play both Rambo and Ward Cleaver seems to be their challenge. Nobody should ignore the Republican Party's fixation on the Constitution. We're the party and ideology of the Constitution. They dress up like the people who wrote the Constitution, Stewart said, eloquently describing their false patriotism on national television. It would indicate that they hold the view that the Founding Fathers were actually actors. Ultimately, Stewart's comedic timing goes beyond mere belly laughs. Emphasizing how ridiculous it is the main point. What he's trying to tell us is that laughing it off is the best defense against stupidity. And maybe, just maybe, we might begin to perceive the hypocrisy by finding humor in it.